we haven't got Susan Hall presiding over us.
See you later, Susan. And am I the only one who's developing somewhat of a soft spot for a certain Count Binface as well?
Oh, yes, absolutely, yeah.
Wonderful man. Thing, whatever, bin.
There was one person who wasn't quite as delighted, wasn't there, Marina?
There was, yeah. I mean, what do you expect after a catastrophic week of election results? And on that, we're going to go live to how the BBC's Laura Kuenssberg is taking the news.
That's pretty much it.
I love that clip. Yeah, that is her. That is Laura.
Yeah, she didn't go into full denial mode, though, unlike the Mail on Sunday. Oh, my gosh. So imagine, it's literally the biggest thing that's happening in the UK. It is huge. It's newsworthy. Mm-hmm. And yet, okay, despite the fact the Tories have had their worst hammering in 40 years, it was like, just whistling over at the Mail on
Fingers
Sunday.
In ears.
La 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 la. Oh no, because the front page was a bit of a, It was like double take time. What did they have on the front? Bit of old royal goss and something about Angela Rayner. So, yeah, great. Well done, guys. Well done, lads.
I know. There would have been a conversation, I'm imagining it in my head, there would have been a conversation at Daily Mail HQ with them all sat around like a boardroom table going, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? How are they going to spin it? These results, they're just unspinnable. What do we put on the front page? What do we do? And then one of them at the back end of the room goes, I've got an idea. Let's just pretend it didn't happen. And if you look at the front page, that's exactly what they did. And so I did tweet about this and had a bit of beef with Dan Hodges, who is the columnist at the Mail on Sunday. He's the one that is going after Angela Rayner still. I think he's on day 31 of trying to make a story out of nothing.
Yeah, it's like the most rubbish version of Big Brother ever. It's been like day 28, day 29. And underneath is just abuse. It's just people going, shut up, bore off, no one cares, get a grip. And he's very, very stuck on it. I'm genuinely thinking when it'd be like, day 5072. Honestly, enough. Turn it in.
But anyway, he came back trying to justify the Mail on Sunday not having a front page mentioning it because he'd written a 4,000-word article on it and he sent me the link to it and I clicked on it and it's on Mail Plus behind a paywall and he's trying to portray that as some sort of like equivalence. And I was having to explain this to him and I was like, what am I doing?
It's so blatant, isn't it? It's like, we've had a nightmare. Hide it.
I know. A newspaper, Gemma, that doesn't cover the news.
Precisely. And it wasn't just Dan who was losing the plot, because the BBC's Laura Kuenssberg, the presenter of their flagship political interview show, she's been having a little bit of a mare as well, and quite a lot of criticism this week specifically. So Alex Keeley wrote on Twitter, I think Laura Kuenssberg's social media use is more damaging for the BBC's reputation than Gary Lineker's. And have a listen to her here on BBC Sounds talking to Paddy O'Connell about Keir Starmer. And just remember that according to the BBC Charter, she is supposed to sound impartial. I don't think she does.
What Keir Starmer's done again and again and again in the last couple of days when they've won.
Well, are you going to tell me that he appears at football grounds?
Yes, but non-league football grounds. So not in a shirt and tie, not in a suit and tie, not in a shiny floor factory in front of a big widget or a plane with people with really stiff placards all standing there ready to clap on cue when he walks in. He's gone to non-league football grounds in that centrist dad uniform a bomber jacket, navy shirt, or even
My wardrobe.
even a V-neck jumper with
My
a T-shirt underneath it. Exactly. He's been in Paddy's wardrobe. He's been rifling through.
So he goes to non-league football grounds, and then
right.
that means he's got more feeling of spontaneity?
I'm a man of the people. Look at me. I love nothing more than playing a five-a-side with my mates. And if I wasn't trying to be Prime Minister, I'd just be here having a pint and maybe,
Yes.
kicking a ball around. And it is a completely different vibe to the kind of very staged photo ops that we see so often.
Non-league football grounds for a Jemma. Also, got a question. If Keir Starmer wears a centrist dad uniform, what is a right-wing dad uniform? What do they wear?
Yeah, just looking like someone that's never been to a football game before in their life. Plus, we know that Keir Starmer does play football. And also, what does she, as you say, what does she want him to wear? I'm thinking how funny it would be if he had really, really tight, skinny jeans, like big white trainers, like big gold chain, and like really like tight, like designer T-shirt, like a lad in Essex going clubbing. That would be hilarious.
One of those V-necks. One of those V-necks that's so deep it like shows off their pectorals.
Pectorals. Yeah, what's he supposed to bloody wear? Future Prime Minister?
Sprayed on skinny jeans.
Or maybe like a leopard skin suit. Yeah, ridiculous. Moog tweeted, she sounds like she's talking about an ex-husband that she bitterly despises after hearing that he's back on the local dating scene. And it is that kind of vibe. She's like, ugh. Plus, whatever, I mean, I don't know if it is that contrived. It would seem quite strange to me if that was Labour's policy, go and hang out at fairly small football games. You're not going to reach the most people.
There's going to... It wouldn't surprise me. There is a PR sort of effort behind like where people go, where they're seen, what they're wearing. So I'm sure there's a part of it that is completely engineered.
Contrived.
But he is a football fan. He does play football, I think, every Sunday or something for some pub team or whatever. So there's some truth in it.
Yeah, not like old Sunak going, oh, well done, kicky ball, look at me. Anyway, for those of you who weren't like taking as much interest in the election results, let's just give you the briefest of top lines to say it was shit for the Tories, which is just beautiful. So in the local elections, they lost almost 500 councillors, which is more than half their councillors who were standing for re-election across England. And so for the first time since 96, the Lib Dems beat the Tories to second place on seats won. That's despite having zero media coverage.
Yeah. Can you imagine if someone dared to platform them? And despite that, you still had Tory MPs that I couldn't do this. I could not do it. But somehow they brought themselves to go on national TV and try and spin it. And some of the spins. So Ava Santina tweeted, as Tories suffer worst losses in 40 years, Dame Andrea Jenkins tells Radio 4 that the public are sick of the left's wokest agenda. Okay. What? And then Sue NHS Love wrote, Andrea Leadsom says the loss of Tory councillors is devastating for communities. Can someone tell Leadsom that it was the communities who voted them out? And Naomi Smith from Best for Britain tweeted, I see the cons are trying to make a big thing about low turnout, which is a bit rich coming from the party that introduced rules that make it considerably more difficult to vote. And on that, Gemma, I know you've been away, but did you see the tweet from Tory MP Brendan Clark-Smith?
Yes, I did, little fashy poos, talking about scrapping postal votes. Why?
He's like, let's scrap postal votes. It's like, they just don't. If they don't win something, it's basically the equivalent of just like chucking the Monopoly board on the table. No, that's what I used to do. My brother, he would always cheat when he played Monopoly. Yeah. And then if he lost, even when he was cheating, he'd get really pissed off and he'd just throw the board upside down. That's basically what Brendan Clark-Smith was trying to do there.
We've all done it. We've all done it when we were 4. Yeah, not as a grown-ass adult, for God's sake. Anyway, also, just as a little sidebar, a personal thing that Marina took the absolute mick out of me. I went to Ibiza on the day of the of voting, and I said, she said, what time are you flying? I said, I've got a very reasonable flight time, actually, because I've made time so that I can go and vote. And Marina said, why didn't you do it by post? And I said, I don't know. that's that story. But no,
I find it so weird. Why don't people do
Well,
it? Because
I don't know.
then you have to walk to a place. Like, you could be
Well,
at work, you could have childcare. Like,
No,
I
I tell you what,
post it.
there's a part of me that enjoys it. I like it. I like the whole thing of walking in. I feel interested and excited and engaged. And of course, another thing to be celebrated is the fact that despite all their noise, all their guff, all their platforming, Reform won, wait for it, 2 councillor seats. Whereas,
Hallelujah, we need that sound effect, don't we?
Hallelujah.
Oh, hang on. Yasmin, can I just add something? So Yasmin Alibi Brown, I don't know if you saw this, but she was on Jeremy Vine, and she was on with Richard Tice, and she called him Richard 2 Seats Tice. I hope that sticks.
Beautiful. And the Greens, massive congratulations to them as well. And so heartening and heartwarming to see. They won 181 councillors. This is
amazing.
Hope, everybody. This is good. This is progress. And Joe Heenan quite rightly pointed out the Green Party got over 180 councillors. Reform got 2. The entire British media, let's talk to Richard Tice and ask him how his party became the new dominant force in UK politics. Christ on an effing bike. Absolutely.
Just on that, I'm just going to do a little sidebar because I read something today, and basically there's been a consensus of hundreds of the world's leading scientists. I don't know if you've seen this, Gemma, but hundreds of the world's leading scientists have come out and said things like they feel hopeless, they feel in a depression, they fear for the world that they're leaving to their kids, because we are now going to see our global temperatures rise by 2.5%, which is terrifying, which basically means like floods, fires, famines, like now. So
thanks, Marina.
More votes for Greens.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And also,
sorry,
cheers.
I need to mention it.
We do. It's true, absolutely. I mean, basically, if we were all sensible, we would only vote Green, right? Jesus. Anyway, yeah, on that note as well, going for a lovely swim in Ibiza, turquoise sea, sorry everybody, sorry, not sorry, but also picking out a bit of plastic. You're like, oh, swim. Oh, there's a bit of plastic. Oh, swim. Oh, there's a bit of plastic. What the hell? What are people like? What are humans like? A bunch of bells.
But was there poo?
No, there wasn't. There was no turd for me to swallow, and
Silver
that
lining.
was nice. Not just silver lining, bloody gold lining. So that was excellent.
That's a Richard Tice. Yeah, so bearing in mind the result, and he's got 2 seats, there was an article that the BBC put out with Richard Tice's grinning face and the headline, Reform UK becoming real opposition to Labour, says Richard Tice, to which Alistair Morgan replied, with 2 council seats. And despite the results of those elections that Gemma just rattled off, Laura Kuenssberg ploughed ahead with her Sunday morning politics show on the BBC, where she was interviewing 2 people from the party that came third and no one from the party that beat them and came second.
God almighty, it's all a bit of a joke, isn't it? Adam Bienkov said 3 politicians from the Conservative Party, which lost almost 500 councils and multiple mayoral contests, featured on the Laura Kuenssberg programme this morning, none from Greens or Lib Dems, who made significant gains. It's bizarre. It's just gaslighting. Oh, and then even worse, one of them was Suella Deville, who, if I never saw her face again, it would be just absolutely bloody marvellous. She's like a sort of cartoon villain, terrible person. And Jerry McKay said, unbelievable. Laura Kay starts with twice sacked, deranged right-wing Suella Braverman. Why are the BBC obsessed with amplifying the voices of divisive fascists who represent a tiny minority? And she was behaving erratically, even for her.
We are not delivering for the people. We're not delivering the policies that people want. And it's a disgrace that we are trailing up against Labour. led by Keir Starmer, who has the charisma of a peanut, who is overseeing a party which is a rabble of hard left maniacs who would undo Brexit, who would open our borders, and who would indoctrinate our institutions and our schools with politically correct madness.
But given all
we
the
shouldn't be
changes that you've had-
trailing to the degree that we are against this Labour
But
Party.
given all the turmoil...
She's
Bloody
losing
hell.
it. She's getting more and more, like, crazy.
Yeah,
Frenzied.
and it was very contemptuous. You know, he's got the charisma of a peanut.
It just sounds like she's proper spitting her dummy out. What I found so incredible about that rambling is that she appears convinced of two things. One is that the solution is for the Tories to move even further right when there is clearly no evidence that this is what people want, if you look at the local elections for a start. And two,
Yep.
that she, despite being a Tory, despite having been in the cabinet, despite having been at the heart of this government that people are now making clear they want to get in the sea, she doesn't believe she's got anything to do with its failure. She sort of sees herself as being separate to it. How? How?
Yeah. Anyway, she's written a fabulous article, hasn't she? Yeah, really wonderful article in the Telegraph.
Brilliant. Look, I'll be honest, I did not get past the headline and the first paragraph because the first paragraph was hilarious. Let me read this to you. This is Suella Braverman in the Telegraph. Let me cut to the chase so no one wastes time overanalyzing this. We must not change our leader. Changing leader now won't work. The time to do so came and went. The hole to dig us out is the PM's, and it's time for him to start shoveling. Now, because that's what you do, right? When you're in a hole, the only way to get out of it is to keep shoveling. God, Miss Suella Braverman, you absolute belle.
Brendan May tweeted, Suella Braverman is so utterly awful. I don't think even Roald Dahl could have invented her. Thank you, Brendan, for saying what we think so eloquently.
Oh gosh, where do
Oh,
we
God.
even start this one?
So, Boris Johnson, the absolute gimp, the person who introduced voter ID requirement, even though he'd been completely anti it years gone by, he was turned away from his polling station after forgetting to bring his ID. What a bell! And it so represents who he is. He's such a pillock. He's so stupid and lazy
Scatty,
and
brainless.
scatty and dopey
Yeah.
and doesn't care about rules and doesn't like and also made up all this
Doesn't
stuff
pay
that he doesn't
attention.
know, that he
Yeah.
doesn't even know what he's done. It's just so bad. And they turned him away because all he had was an envelope with his name and address on it, which is probably from some ex telling him that she hates him. I mean, God knows. And Adam Schwartz tweeted, Boris Johnson said in 2004 that he would eat his ID at a polling station in protest if the law ever required it. In 2022, he passed the law requiring it, and in 2024, he forgot it. Jesus.
What a timeline. What a timeline. They're such idiots. In a democracy, you're supposed to make it easier for people to vote because you want people to have their say. You don't make it more difficult for people. Even forgetful, scatty bellends like Boris Johnson should be able to vote when the time comes.
So Sam Friedman said, I'm so jealous of the election official who got to turn Johnson away for having no ID. The joy that would swell in your soul when you realise he had none. I mean, I would have been clapping. And then that guy, Robert, said, not the first time he's failed to comply with legislation he introduced. No, it's not, is it?
And Henry Morris tweeted, that's embarrassing. He sets out to stop voter fraud and ends up stopping frauds voting. Brilliant. Rishi Sunak, right, he did actually eventually come out and face the music. He released a statement saying, Britain has turned a corner and the Tories are delivering for the British people. To which Alex Andrea replied, this is now the political equivalent of a mental health crisis.
It's like, you're right, mate. Are you seeing the same results as us, you absolute bell?
It doesn't mean deliver the same plan. It means change your bloody plan, surely. And have you noticed as well, they've already started, and Rishi Sunak, I think, has also been perpetuating this. They've already started to dish out the old coalition of chaos line. So they're basically trying to use the local election results to say that there's a chance, if you were to model the general election on the local elections, that actually we could be headed for a hung parliament. So they're giving it all coalition of chaos, which actually I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind a coalition.
Fine.
But also hearing coalition of chaos from a party that can't maintain its leader, has got 5 families pulling in different directions, and a new faction of bellends coming out every week. I mean, it's a bit rich.
It really is. It really is. Right, should we move on to some underrated tweets of the week?
Okay, I've got one from Dr. Dan Goyle, which I thought was very profound. He wrote, "Notable that the Greens and Independents combined have gained almost the same number of seats as Labour. A spectacular defeat for Tories, but not so sure a spectacular win for Labour. Maybe Labour should try inspiring people instead of placating morons."
Yeah, it might be time for them to try a little bit of that.
Yes, and then the comedian Mark Steele wrote, "If Rishi Sunak was a football manager, he'd say, 'The country isn't interested in our 17-0 defeat. What matters is the throw-in we won after 68 minutes that shows we're on track to win the Champions League.'"
Very good. I've got one. I just saw it. I was on the train on the way home yesterday and I snorted. So I've got to try and describe this now. Mrs. Bad Crumble 1975 tweeted it and she just put, "This pic has made my day." And it's Lee Anderson. He's wearing a fleece and jeans. He's got his hands in his pockets and he's standing in front of a sign. Now, if I just tell you that the sign, we all know that really it says Canal Tours, right? But his big meathead, is blocking the sea. So he's looking very proud and very happy in front of anal tours. And that's that. And that was satisfying. Why do people not notice these things? I mean, for goodness sake. And then,
maybe he's lining up a new job for when he's booted out.
That's a tour I don't want to take. Thank you very much. Russ Jones tweeted, and this was a good one. "If you want a good giggle this morning, try thinking about Scott Benton, who has to find work in the Blackpool job market with a record as a lying, cheating, corrupt moron who was so shit he managed to get thrown out of a Tory party that can still contain Jonathan Gullis." I think Russ is correct. I think it's fair to say Scott Benton's career has probably peaked. And then lastly, I've got this one by Buck Frexit. And it says, "Rishi, judge me on my pledges to fix Britain." And Buck Frexit put, "We just did. Now fuck off."
Nicely done, Buck Frexit.